Okay. So, hello, Jane.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm so glad
Thank
that
you.
you're here because
Thank you.
this. Oh, you're welcome. And so I'm just going to share with our listeners today about you. What I've got here is just a
Mhm.
little short bio from you, and that is Jane Piper is an organizational psychologist and bestseller author of Focus in the Age of Distraction, a book looking at the impact of digital technology in our well-being and ways of working. She is interesting in the intersection of human and technology. She is challenges us to look at the impact the technology is having our work and non-work lives, well-being and happiness. She grew up in New Zealand and has been living abroad for many years. Wow. Most recently for 15 years in Switzerland, is bringing a unique blend of Kiwi, lovely, creativity and Swiss efficiency. She combines writing, speaking, consulting, and coaching on topics of career, collaboration, and culture. After a 20-year corporate career, she's now helps people and organization to work better in digital age. Oh my God, I have to say, first of all, congratulations. Oh my goodness, I
Thank
love that because,
yeah.
okay, this is what we have a problem at the moment,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
with the technology. And this is the
Mhm.
best way of speaking with this amazing person because she knows a thing about it. So
Yeah.
thank you for joining me. I am so happy and I'm so grateful for you to be here. Now, you've got 20 years experience. I can't believe
Yes,
it.
yeah.
You look so
Mm.
young. What you be
Yep.
doing?
Oh, yeah. I'm no, you can see the wrinkles. You can definitely see the wrinkles
No,
there.
you're
Yep.
making them now.
Yeah, you can definitely see those wrinkles after 20 years. 20 years and going grey in the process. So yes, I spent 20 years working in various corporate jobs, mostly in HR roles.
Wow.
And I went in to HR roles because I really also I studied psychology and I really wanted to help people. But
Okay.
after 20 years in corporate roles, I really felt that somehow I'd lost that feeling that I was actually helping people.
Mhm.
Um, because so much of what I ended up doing in the end was what they call change management, which is a euphemistic word for actually having to lay people off most of the time. So I really, at the end of my corporate career, needed to do something where I felt that I was doing something a lot more positive and a lot more good for the world. So I still do work in the corporates, but I get to choose what I'm doing. So if they say to me,
Wow.
come in and manage a restructuring, I go, no, thank you very much. But they come in and help us to educate and develop our people and to make sure that the workplace is a healthy and happy place. I'm like, yeah, I'm there for you.
Wow, I love that. That's amazing. And for you to be able to come out of the corporate and to go do something that you love, how did that happen?
It's interesting, isn't it, when you go into I've been thinking about starting up my business for quite a while. And, you talk a lot about blockers and barriers, but I had this idea in my mind. I was going to go and start my business where I was living here in Switzerland. I was going to start my business when we shifted back to New Zealand because it would be too hard to start a business in Switzerland.
Okay.
So I had this mental block. And some of the things were really quite silly things like I had, I don't understand German enough, and of course I'd have to do taxes here, and I don't have all the network here because, you're not like you were born with the people and went to kindergarten and da 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 or on through your life. Had all these sorts of blockers. And so I joined a group, the other woman who were also looking at setting up people, and I found, it actually wasn't that bad. There were women who spoke worse German than I did. It's actually quite possible. Um, and, so they didn't speak German. They didn't care whether they understood how you do taxes. They just basically hired an accountant.
Oh, wow.
They didn't seem to worry whether their network was here or not. So I just felt like, what am I doing with all these funny things holding me back? And my husband got another job here, and so he wanted to stay. So it seemed like I'd be putting this off forever. So eventually I said, okay, no, I'm doing it. I'm going to start up my business. And you know how those things sometimes perfectly collide?
Yes.
I rang up an old boss of mine,
Mm.
and she'd shifted on to a new job. She'd been in the role about 6 months, and she said, well, if you do start up your business, I want to be your first customer. I've got a project that I need doing now, and I can't find the right people. And that was it. I handed in my resignation almost like, and 3 months later, I had my first customer, which is, as many people say, the first customer is the hardest one to get. My second, no, my third and fourth. So I had a good first customer, quite easily got my second customer, and then it got a little bit harder. So
Wow, so a bit different, but you
yeah,
did it. And here you
yeah.
are doing something you love. Now,
Mm,
let's go. I would like us to go back a bit. I would
mm,
like just a little history of where where you're born, your
mhm.
childhood. Did anything kind of stand out for you in your life?
Well, I always say I grew up in a very small town in New Zealand. Its name's called Pleasant Point.
Hmm.
And so it's a lovely little place. The name says it all. It's very pleasant and it's very small. It's not far
Amazing.
away from a place called Happy Valley. So it makes it sound like we all live there, umming and, da 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 da, sort of hippie style. But it's actually a very normal, traditional, small New Zealand village. But I think the thing that stands out from my childhood there is that we had the chance to do it all because the school was too small to say, oh, we only want the elite people to be in the top sports teams and we only want the good people to be here and the good people to be there. So we got the chance to try everything. So you have this real in I can't think of how busy I was, but it was so easy to be that busy because people would actually say to you, oh, I was 11 at the time, and I'd learnt to play the piano and was still learning. And they said the music teacher will stop coming if we don't get more students. It's all paid for, in the sort of school, but we need somebody, and the instrument that's available is a cello. So, would you like to learn the cello? And it's a bit like, well, why not? And it's right there in your school because the town's tiny. And then, oh, we're starting a new Girl Scout troop, and would you please sort of join it so that we can get the numbers up? The current one's too big, but we need some more. So please join, and all these things. So you had all these things, and it was only ever 5 minutes walk away. So there wasn't any of this helicopter parent, taxi mums and dads having to run their kids around. And is it safe to be out at night? My God, of course it was. I mean, you knew everybody in the town. So I think that is a childhood that sort of stands out when I look back at it, and I look back at what's available to our kids now. There's probably more opportunities available to our kids now, but they didn't sort of get, it has to be more organized and arranged and all these sorts of things. So I think that was the huge advantage of where I grew up. Yeah.
Wow, what an amazing story that you got there. Now, let's move forward now. What inspired you to start talking about the technology and the life itself? What is that came for you and for you to actually get inspired to write about it?
Yes, it came from, I really felt when I left my corporate career, I was seeing myself in that stage back there and many of my colleagues and friends that with the phones coming into the workplace, with phones coming in, the iPhones, these smartphones, Android, whatever one, but these smartphones that you could be on call all the time, that from when I started working, where basically, yes, we had computers, but they were these hulking great things that sat on a desk. So you went home and maybe you take a few papers with you and maybe you do a bit of work, but it's a different concept than going home and always be having, your emails, having messages at all times of the day and night and being able to access this. And this what I saw is this ongoing, the technology, it's not the technology, but it's the opportunity that the technology provided for people to always have work on their mind and never be fully rested. and never be away from it, and it basically all those boundaries seeping together. And then of course along has come coronavirus, and we've got people working right in their homes, and so basically there's even less separation between work and non-work life than there's previously been. So the technology enables it. It's not the technology's fault, so I don't want to blame that, but it's how we choose to use it. And we haven't really thought about that. People don't seem to want to think about it. I mean, they might think, well, oh, how much screen time have the kids had, and I shouldn't let, my little one play, he's whatever age, let's say under 10 somehow, we shouldn't let him to play too violent games. And what about cyberbullying amongst teenage girls? We want to worry about that, but we're not going to actually think so much about what about me? How am I using my phone? And what does that mean for um, what's it doing for my mental health and well-being? And definitely when so much of that's linked to work. So I mean, it's not like we play so much, but it's more the addiction to work. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing where a lot of people they find it very hard to actually like putting it down the phone and then
Mm,
say, you know what I mean? I've gone to work for 8 hours,
mm,
and you know that you've worked for 8 hours. But
mm,
then on your phone, how many hours are you using your phone? The thing about Apple that I like, it does have like analytical that it tells you how many hours a day
mm,
you use your phone. But
mm,
then okay, even if we say we're using for another 7 hours, so you're working 8 hours, you're using your
mm,
phone for 7 hours or 8 hours, that
mm,
is a lot of hours that you're using for the phone. Now, if we actually think, what are we using this phone for?
mm,
Because when I was a young mother and I have my children, it was kind of easy for me to just oh, there's a TV for you, watch
mm,
TV, I'm cooking, or watch it. So
mm.
because the TV becomes my assistant, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And leave my children to be supervised by the TV,
Yeah.
because I'm cooking, I'm doing something else, I
Mm.
cannot
Yeah,
be
yeah.
there. But at the beginning, when a child is growing and they look at these cartoons that they started speaking, and it helps, and it looks like, oh my god, it's amazing tool to use.
Mm,
But
mm,
then for me, because I help also other communities, especially like people who don't work, sometimes mothers who stays at home, and sometimes especially the mothers, they use the phone most of the time for YouTube, or they're using the phone for social media. But then if you ask most of those women, it's like they're looking for other people's lives to make them feel a little better, but then it's
mm,
not actually helping them. And
mm.
is
Yeah.
this what are you trying to kind of like make it for people to be understanding while you're using your phone, and what
Yeah.
is it doing for your mental illness or mental, for
Yeah.
mental,
Health. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
mental
I
health?
think, yeah. I think the question that you have to ask is it time well spent? So I think let's think about two things is what that you mentioned there. One is with your children, when, I'm not going to say we've all done it, set the kids in front of the TV or something to entertain them because you do something else. You cannot be present all the time. But what's
Yes,
interesting is now with a phone in your hand, you can be taking a walk in the park with the pushchair in one hand, da, da, da. And this development of kids, it is by talking to them
yes,
and seeing them in their eye and seeing the reactions from their adults, but usually their parents that they're bonded with and things. So this time that it's always this over here and not looking at the kid, if you know what I mean. So
exactly.
it's important that you're at that that at times we're present, and whether it's with children or whether it's with other loved ones or older children, when are we actually present? And then this other one is, why are people using it for this distraction, and
Mhm.
is that healthy? And of course what you're really saying is, from those people, this social comparison. As human animals, we often do the social comparison.
Yeah,
When we didn't have phones to compare and look at, Kim Kardashian or other movie stars, Victoria Beckham on, Instagram or whatever, or watch something on that, we'd be comparing ourselves with the neighbours and whether they had a new car or whether they had a better house or whatever the case. So we have the social comparison, but where I think it makes it worse on social media is that everything's on show for a lot of these people, and it creates such high expectations and a view into their life that you never saw. So if you go back 20 years before social media was big, you knew the rock stars and the movie stars were important and they were famous. But unless you flicked through a glossy magazine, you didn't really have much of a glimpse into their life. Now they're there every 5 minutes telling you, wear this, do that. And I think that is quite a lot of pressure for some side, but it's also a bit of a distraction. It's a bit like if I said to you, sit down and for 7 hours a day, flick through, glossy magazines, reading snippets about Facebook stars and cat videos. You think, or could I spend 7 hours watching YouTube and learning anything? There is so much you could learn, and there is so many free courses out there that you could be learning. If I spent that same amount of time doing something, where was that time well spent? Have I learned something? Have I grown? Have I connected with some real people? So to me it comes back to this question: is that really time well spent? For you as a person to grow, or for your family, or for your community to be able to grow and advance?
But that as well can lead into argument for the young ones now. Because if you go back to the way we were before when we were children, there was not phones to look around on Facebook and all these things. But then nowadays, it's kind of hard when your child is like, oh, look at that child has this kind of new phone, and that child has a new phone. I don't have any new phone. What's wrong with the people bullying me for that? This is it's very sad with this, because of the society is making, like, having technology is part of that status of the children's way.
Mm.
It's like showing that you are up some way, or you are,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And how can you know what do you think of this kind of way of living?
I think previously it would have been, did you have the right brand of sneakers or the right brand of
Exactly.
jeans? So this issue isn't new of, whether it's the right technology or, so now it's the phone, which is the thing rather than the jeans. So it's more about teaching the kids whatever it is, because in the next generation it'll be something else, about how what's important and what's really valuable is who they are as a person inside and what they do, and not what they own, and judging other people for that. And then so dealing with obviously the issue that they're being bullied for whatever it is, because take away the phones, then the kids will be bullied because they don't have the something else, or then they'll bully kids who look different, and you can't do anything to change that because they look different or sound different or act different or whatever. So I don't really see the technology in that side, but where I do see the technology has more impact is the cyberbullying that can go
Mm.
on
Yes, and that's the sad
amongst the
part.
kids.
Yeah, that's the sad
Yeah.
part, because people, especially children, who end up killing themselves or end up having
Mm.
a breakdown. And it's really, because how you can even police that, you know what I mean? How you
Mm.
can, is there kind of like, for children themselves to be aware, okay, you need to see this is like what is happening, and start you having awareness, at the beginning before it goes too far, who to talk to. Because as well, is that because the children don't have a good relationship with parents? Don't you agree with that? For them to be able to go and ask the parents, or sometimes even some of their children, not all of them, but they find it hard to connect with their own family, you know what I mean, in the way that if you've been told at home, or you've been told you are beautiful, you are amazing, and I care about you, by showing
Mm.
and approving, for that child, when they're bullied from the screen, you know what I mean, it's very kind of like, this is severe in a way that it's just sad.
Yeah.
Please, I just want to
Yeah.
hear your
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. I mean, you're right that there's usually more issues than just the cyberbullying going on. I mean, the cyberbullying, I mean, kids will have always had the bullying. I guess what happens with the technology is that it's so more broadly spread and out there, and it's so much more obvious than it was when a note was passed around a school or something like that, or a story moved out. So there's that aspect of it that technology allows. But often, kids who are addicted to technology or using technology as an escape, it's exactly as you say, there is some other issue. So they're looking for some distraction as a way to avoid facing an issue. So if they are being put down at home and they're not feeling good, they don't have a good self-esteem, whether it's cyberbullying or other bullying or whatever, or just spending a lot of time online so they don't have to spend time with their family or whatever because they don't feel safe and comfortable in that environment. It's more that they're using it as a tool for distraction. It's probably on some sides you could say it's not as bad as alcohol or drugs, but on the other hand, it is basically used as a crutch to avoid, in some cases, some other issues. I mean, it's a bit of a glib saying to
Mm,
say this, but any addiction usually comes from a place where there is some other issue
yeah.
that people are seeking. I mean, of course, there'll be a few exceptions, some kid that just wanted to try it at some time. But really, with whatever addictions usually come, that there's some other issue lying behind it. And so a technology addiction is the same. Yeah.
And for your book, if you'd like to show us your book
Oh,
and tell
yes.
us a bit about your book, because we're going to talk about this longer and so I need this to be. So please tell us about Focus the Age of Distraction. Focusing
Yeah,
the
sure.
Age.
Thanks. Yes, love to tell you about this. So basically, it's written more rather than we've talked a lot about children and families today, but this is really written for the working person and
Yes,
comes back to my aim that help people in the workplace to be able to manage their time, recognize it's not about working harder, it's not about spending all their time on the technology, it's about being focused, getting that work done, getting out there, and when you're done switching off and enjoying life, enjoying time with your family, enjoying time with your friends, enjoying time with your sports, whatever you do, and taking that perspective. And I'm not harking back to old days. I mean, I love my technology as much as anybody else, but basically starting to have more boundaries between work and non-work again, and pulling basically it's easier, I believe, to be a workaholic these days than it was previously with the help of the technology. So really focusing and using the brain, because that's what makes a difference. It's not how long you're at work, but it's how much. I mean, we should be valuing people for what they do and not how long they've been sitting at a desk. So if somebody comes up with a hugely creative idea, whether that took them 5 minutes or 8 hours, the idea is just as valuable. So this is about the outputs. And that's what we're seeing with this change with working from home. People are still able to get their work done. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to sit in an office from 9 to 5.
exactly. And this is where this pandemic came in a way that to show people that you don't have to sit on the desk. You don't have to be your management, or your boss to stand behind you, breathing down your neck to make sure
Mm,
you are sitting down and you're doing your work and policing you and
mm,
supervising you, whatever step you're taking. So it's actually good to have that. But what I love about your book is that because it shows boundaries, but also, would you agree? Because in this, before the pandemic, I'm talking,
mm,
was that people, they had this competitive stripes in a way that they have to be good, or they have to ensure that they get that deal, and they have to make sure that, oh, I'm seen to be working, away from
mm,
my work. You know what I
mm,
mean? And just to kind of like putting that extra thing that I'm doing so my boss can
yeah.
notice. You know what I mean? So what you
Yeah, it's
say
called,
for people like
let's
that?
call it what it's called. It's called sucking up to your boss. Is it? Yeah, yeah. And there's a phrase that they call it, which is a bit politer. It's called competitive overtime. And so
Okay.
basically, in highly competitive work environments,
Hmm.
um, they create this culture of FaceTime and
Yes.
working late. And it's interesting. So I read a study about this. You laugh at this one. So there was around about, I can't remember the numbers exactly, but it was a good quarter of people
Mm.
admitted to the fact that they had sent an email later at night just to impress their boss. They really didn't have anything in particular to say. But then, and also, to show other workers that they're, doing stuff. Then, however, there was a smaller percentage who, what they had done is were clever enough to program their email program so that the email program sent an email. And so that wasn't a very high percentage. It was around about 10%. But it reminded me of something else I remembered reading, that there's around about 4% of people are sociopaths or psychopaths, as
Yes.
they describe them. And it's a bit like, yeah, it seems like a lot of them must have ended up in these highly competitive work environments, and have sneaky enough to be able to set the emailer up. They're actually out there down at the pub having a few beers. The email's going out to their boss looking like they're working really hard. And creating the stress for their co-workers who are also trying to show their boss, but they're ones actually sitting there sending real messages of that. So yeah, it is definitely, there are people who are in competitive worlds really trying to compete to go up the ladder.
Mm.
And the technology, they use that to their advantages to try and show that. But I think it's a sign of cultures which are not helping people. They're not encouraging the well-being. They're not thinking about their people. They're thinking only about, getting people to work harder so the company can make more profit or whatever it needs to achieve, and not really thinking about the well-being of their staff, because it's a breeding ground for high stress and burnout.
Exactly, because I've been actually working in different areas, and I've actually noticed that sometimes the company gives the workers phones or laptop, and they actually, on their day off, they even calls them and tells them you need to go into it because somebody didn't show up, or somebody, and it becomes like bullying in a way that you have this and we need you to appear, even though you are off. Or you know
Mm,
what I mean, it's not your time for work. And for
mm,
me, it's so sad because seeing that happen to a lot of people, and it's just like, because sometimes people, especially the workers, they don't know their rights in a way. They just don't, they feel like I have to do it because if I don't, I'm going to lose my job, or feeling the pressure of the work, or if, especially for people who like, oh, I need to show that I'm doing something, or I'm doing extra something for them to get respected, or to feel that, to be acknowledged by the boss. So what do you
mm.
say to that side of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think this comes down to, like, where I've worked in workplaces, um, respecting that people, when they have their time off, they have their time off. Now, of course, there's always be an emergency. Something comes up. A co-worker is sick. You don't have the codes to, I don't know, access this particular document or file, and it's very important. But it should come with not the expectation you have to do it, but come with an apology. Would you mind? Could you? And not, something like that. So I think because people need their time off for rest and relaxation, to be able to refresh, and it actually makes them better when they're back at work. They'll be more productive. But also, we're seeing a pandemic I shouldn't use the word pandemic. We are seeing a lot of people who are suffering from high stress and burnout. I mean, it is um, account of mental unhealth is the highest loss of work time in the UK.
This is
So
true, very true. Yeah, that I do understand. That is so
needs to be
true.
taken seriously. And
Yeah.
yeah, employers who aren't taking those issues seriously and are thinking, yeah, people, we just keep them working and keep them working. It's good for my business. It's not good for people in the end of the day, and it's a health and safety issue. People working too long hours and high levels of stress. Yeah.
That's so true, because end of the day, I believe that, okay, this pandemic came maybe it's the right time. I feel so bad, and I'm so sorry for the people who died and people who are sick. But at the same time, for the hierarchy, for the jobs that don't really value your, the workers, or for even the way that is like, you remember, I don't know if, well, you should be, because you've been here for a very long time, is that people, they come from, the way you used to be. They created these buildings in the city and creating the office spaces and all these things, very expensive and all, to keep it and to hold on. But now with this pandemic, it actually shows that you don't need office space. You don't
No.
need any of this the way you are told a job has to, or the business has to be. You can actually do it at home for any business now, to show that there is a difference. What do you think of this, in any way that you think is going to be changes in this world?
Oh, oh,
Anything?
definitely. I mean, I don't have the crystal ball to see what's going to change, but I think we can both agree it's going to change. And of course, there's a lot of people out there prophesizing what will happen, and I've been listening to a number of them. But I think some of the ones that I've listened to that I think are the most interesting ones to who have been saying is they've been talking about the fact that, previously it used to be you worked in an office and by default, and then by exception, you
Mm.
were able to have a day working at home or whatever. And it's going to switch the other way. You work at home, and then by default, you go back to having an office, into the office when you need to. And there'll be some people that really want to go back into the office. I have, a group of friends of mine, and one of them, she's got two teenage boys at home, and the husband at home. And she was like, I cannot get any work then. She was one of the first people back in the office,
Yeah.
but the office is completely empty, and she's like, I just can't stand it. I can't get any work done. And then there are other people, and for various reasons, they've not gone back to the office, and they really seem to be, saying, okay, I don't think I will. I'm now seeing, why would I spend an hour there, an hour back? That's 2 hours in my day. What do I achieve in those 2 hours? I can achieve so much more by actually not going back to the office. So I think we're going to definitely see a shift. It's going to shift, as you say, on the real estate side. I mean, how much office space, shiny glass windows down in the city do you actually need?
Right.
And what does that mean? But it requires a huge shift in the way managers behave, because
Yes.
now you can't watch what people are doing. You have to look at what they are doing from a point of view as to what is their output. And just
Yes.
basically scheduling somebody to be on conference calls or video conferences from 7 in the morning to 7 at night can give you the feeling of control, but then they've got no time to actually do any work. I mean, we don't achieve anything all the time. We're just having meetings all the time. So, that they have to start thinking about people being able to manage autonomously, even if you can't see them, and giving people that autonomy. Or so it comes back to a lot of this way that we empower people and treat people, and those older micromanagement, command and control styles are just going to be gone.
I
They
know.
just don't work in the way where so many of us are going to be
Yes.
working out there.
I can't wait. Really, I can't wait to see that, because
Yeah.
it's actually good for people,
Mm.
because it makes you as a person to, okay, you've got this workload, you need to do it. There's no need for you to be kind of like to show up in the way that your boss wants to see you. It's nothing to do with your appearance, it's nothing to do with your who you are as a person, what you bring on the table. And that is it's something that has been lost for so long in at work,
Mm.
because it's all about make your boss happy, or the way you have to be looked upon. So it's a big deal for this, because you have to have either trust your people to work and make a good for your business, and you yourself to actually appraise that and just be humble enough to say, you know what, I trust in these people, and I'm one of them. You know what I mean? Rather than feeling like, oh, hold on a second, let's see, are you working? Are you there? What are you doing?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly. I think, yeah, yeah. It requires a level of humility. It requires a level of trust, um, and those things are hard for some people. Mm.
Yes, and it's going to be a big test, really. Well, it's already started, to
It
be
already is.
honest.
I think we're having the big test at the moment. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
It's already started. There's no way out for
Yeah.
now. But end of the day, for me is that I wish that we can actually maintain this new way of working, because
Mm,
I believe a lot of work, a lot of jobs, you don't need to go to a place to make it
mm,
work. You don't
mm,
need it. But also it makes the person to be who they are. You know what I mean?
mm,
You don't have to be a follower, or you don't have to be it's someone else's what they want you to be. So you can just
mm.
be you. But also I want to go back to, like, what do you think of the way the management? Do you think that they need maybe training of becoming understanding of their people to work? What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that our old models of leaders, this very masculine model of leadership that we have of somebody being in command, that comes a lot from, a model of military model that has to change. And a lot of organizations have already changed that. And so it has to come back to a much more, to put it really simple, humane way of managing people. Um, and that you're not really managing people, you are coaching people to get the best out of them. And it's your job as a leader to help facilitate them to bring their best to work every day, rather than to get the body in the door and order the mind to follow type thing. So um, that's what I really hope. There's definitely a role for training people who, at both levels, is like people have to, as you say, that the management needs to operate in a different way, and then the people also need to understand that they are taking on a different role. They have more responsibility, and they have to be able to be willing for that. It's not just simply saying, okay, here you are, you've now got self-managing teams. But what do we do? So it requires yeah, a lot of training and a lot of basically shifting mindsets, which as a psychologist, that's what interests me, how you can bring that in, and how people can change. And we are such interesting creatures. We can change and adapt, and we're just seeing this in this pandemic. When we have to, it's amazing how people will cope and survive and be resilient. Of course, there's also a lot of tragedies. There is also a lot of high stress. It is a difficult time, but we also are such amazing, resilient people.
Yes, we are, and that's remarkable. Jane, I want to say thank you for being here.
Oh,
And
it's a pleasure.
I would love to ask you, what message do you want to share to the world today?
Oh, I want to share really simple. Stop working so hard and spend more time enjoying life. Whether so, that's my simple message for everybody. Get out there and look at the things which are really important, and you'll find most of the time it's not spending more time at work. Now, of course, I always just say, and go out there and buy my book.
Yes, let's have a look at your book again. Tell us they can find it and where they can find you.
Okay, so this is, oops, dropped it. Amazon, so
Okay.
amazon.co is probably the best place for most people to be able to find it. And where can they find me? They can find me on LinkedIn. So it's Jane Piper. Pipsy is the name of my company. So the first three letters PIP and then SY, because I was a psychologist. I put it together. So my company is called Pipsy. And you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find my website at pipsy.ch for Switzerland. And there you'll find lots of other interesting things there if you want to find out about social media addiction, if you want to find about work-life balance. There's blogs and assessments. There's an online course, so it's all there if people are interested. And they can just also, when they get to the website, they can drop me a line. I really like talking to people, so looking for a good excuse.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'm just so honored to have you. And I would
Oh,
love to ask you if you want to come back for next time.
you just ask. It's been a great conversation, and so happy to talk to you. I think we should switch roles next time, and that I should ask you the questions, because I honestly I had deep intentions of reading your book before I came on the show, and I skim read a few things, but I haven't actually read it. So I think I'd love to do it the other way around next time that I interview you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, why not? I like a challenge.
Why not?
That's my
We
attitude.
Yeah, we find out more about you. I got to tell you all about growing up in rural New Zealand, and I think I need to find out more. The viewers need to find out more about you next time.
I can't wait. Okay, I need to find out more as well about me. So I can't wait. I would love to come to New Zealand one day. Okay, so I'm coming to see you one day. So
Oh, definitely.
get it ready for me. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, it's corona free at the moment, so
Oh yes, sorry, Corona has to go first. But yes, thank you so much, Jane, and
thank you.
I can't wait to have you back. It'll be amazing.
Yeah,
So thank you.
and thank you for the amazing conversation. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.